Tonight, the U.S. military is orchestrating the launch of, over 350 explosions every single second over the nation's capital.
Which is just wild to think about.
Right. But the crazy thing is, no matter how perfectly they've engineered America's 250th birthday party, that entire spectacle is completely at the mercy of this invisible, totally unmanageable lid of boiling air sitting right over the Midwest.
Yeah, exactly.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. We're looking at a huge stack of sources from this weekend, Saturday, July 4th, 2026, and it really paints a picture of a world that is just operating at absolute extremes.
We are firmly in the era of unprecedented scale. That's the overarching theme here. As we go through these sources, you see this recurring friction basically everywhere.
Right, yeah.
You have human ambition trying to engineer these massive, flawless systems, whether that's, the sheer mathematical volume of fireworks or a $500 billion injection into artificial intelligence, or even attempting to orchestrate global sports.
Yeah.
And pushing back against all of that engineering is the raw, unpredictable reality of nature, economics, and, just human behavior.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that contrast is playing out literally overhead today. The U.S. is throwing itself a 250th birthday party on the National Mall, and the sources describe this as a highly engineered, military precision event.
Very precise.
Yeah, they're aiming for the Guinness World Record for the largest fireworks display in history.
The logistics required for what they're attempting are just staggering.
Oh, absolutely. The numbers are hard to even wrap your head around. The sources say Pyrotechnico is launching 851,000 fireworks over a 40-minute show.
Over 800,000.
Yeah, starting at 10:30 p.m. Eastern tonight. And they're firing from 10 different sites, including 8 barges on the Potomac and the reflecting pool.
Right.
Plus, you've got hourly military flyovers that started at 1:15 p.m., the Freedom 250 salute at 7 p.m., President Trump's remarks at 9:45. They even had to open security magnetometers at 5 p.m. just to get the crowds in.
It's a massive undertaking.
But I was doing the math on the fireworks part before we started. If you divide 851,000 fireworks by 40 minutes, you get roughly 350 explosions a second.
Yeah, that math checks out.
I just have to wonder, can the human eye even comprehend that? Or does it just become this, solid wall of white light?
You're actually hitting on a really fascinating quirk of human biology there. It's called sensory processing limits.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, the human eye has a refresh rate, essentially, kind of like a computer monitor. When you pack 350 distinct flashes of light into a single second, the optic nerve just can't separate them fast enough.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the brain just blends it all together. So the audience isn't really watching individual fireworks anymore.
Right.
They're experiencing this sustained, synthetic daylight right in the middle of the night.
That's crazy.
And to achieve that illusion, the timing systems on those 8 barges have to be synchronized down to the literal millisecond.
It's the ultimate illusion of control. It's like trying to throw the most elaborately choreographed, biggest house party in human history, but the roof is leaking, the AC is completely broken, and, I don't know, a wild animal just wandered into the backyard.
That is a perfect analogy for the atmospheric heat dome currently sitting over the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, and the Mid-Atlantic right now.
Yeah.
Because no amount of millisecond synchronization can stop a high-pressure weather system.
Right. Our sources mentioned the heat index in Dallas-Fort Worth is hitting 105 degrees today, their first 100-degree day of the summer. But what exactly makes a heat dome different from just, a regular hot summer day?
So think of the atmosphere as a fluid. A heat dome occurs when a massive area of high pressure parks itself over a region and acts like a physical lid.
Okay.
It forces the air to sink, which is a process called subsidence. And as the air sinks, it compresses, and physics dictates that compressed air heats up.
Oh, right, because of the pressure.
Exactly. So it traps all that heat and moisture near the surface, acting like a lid on a boiling pot. And when that trapped boiling energy interacts with standard summer storm systems, you get these incredibly violent pop-up severe storms.
Which is exactly what we're seeing disrupt fan events today, though it looks like it might clear up for the fireworks. But it's not just an inconvenience. Our sources note that flooding in Kentucky has already killed at least 4 people.
It's tragic.
And there's more rain coming.
When an engineered system, like a city's drainage infrastructure or a highly planned national celebration, meets a saturated watershed or a heat dome, nature always wins that physics equation.
Always.
Gravity and atmospheric pressure They just don't care about our schedules.
And speaking of nature not caring about our schedules, that wild animal analogy I used wasn't totally hypothetical.
Right, the Yellowstone incident.
Yeah, the National Park Service just had to issue a safety warning because a 12-year-old was injured by a bison amidst these record crowds at Yellowstone. We want the pristine, predictable vacation, but we're stepping into an ecosystem that operates on its own primal rules.
It perfectly illustrates the limits of our control, really.
Which actually brings me to the political and global side of our sources today.
Yeah, let's pivot to that.
Because we're seeing these exact same extremes of control and disruption, but in how governments operate. Specifically, what happens when leaders are forced to react to massive disruptions, or conversely, when they deliberately choose not to react at all.
The contrast between deliberate political inaction here in the U.S. and desperate emergency response abroad is incredibly stark today.
Yeah, let's start with the inaction.
Yeah.
The largest U.S. housing legislation in 30 years, a bipartisan bill, is currently sitting on President Trump's desk.
Right.
And it has a timer on it. If he doesn't sign it or veto it by July 10th, it automatically becomes law. And the White House has been completely silent on what they plan to do.
Utterly quiet.
And I want to make it super clear for you listening to this deep dive, we are completely neutral on this housing bill. We're not taking any political sides or endorsing the bill itself. We're simply conveying the timeline from the source material.
Exactly. We're just analyzing the mechanics.
Right, the mechanics of how the White House is using silence, basically using the calendar as a tool. I find that fascinating. What does this mean for the concept of leverage?
It is a masterclass in political leverage, honestly. Because in the legislative process, taking explicit action spends political capital.
Right.
If a president signs a bill, they own its outcomes, and they might alienate a faction of their base that opposed it.
Sure.
But if they veto it, they face public backlash for blocking popular bipartisan progress.
Yeah.
So by utilizing the mechanism of inaction, letting the 10-day constitutional clock run out while Congress is in session, the bill becomes law without their signature.
So it's essentially weaponized silence?
Exactly.
They get the plausible deniability of not having signed it while still allowing the system to function. They have the luxury of using time as a buffer.
Luxury is the exact right word there. Legislative inertia is a luxury of stable systems. You can only play those games with time when your physical infrastructure is completely intact.
Which is just a horrifying transition to what is happening in Venezuela right now.
Yeah, it really is.
Because the time buffer there is absolute zero. After the twin 7.2 and 7.5 magnitude earthquakes hit near Caracas, the confirmed death toll has surged past 2,000.
It's devastating.
And the NASA satellite imagery from the sources is just bleak. Over 58,000 buildings are damaged along the La Guaira coastline.
What's fascinating here is when you see a number like 58,000 buildings damaged, it's crucial to understand that we aren't just talking about individual homes.
Right.
We are looking at a cascading failure of urban resilience.
What does a cascading failure actually look like on the ground for those emergency responders racing against the clock?
It means the infrastructure required to mount a rescue operation has itself been destroyed. Those 58,000 structures include hospitals, emergency dispatch centers, and the bridges needed to bring in heavy equipment.
So the system can't even fix itself.
Right. The system doesn't just break, it destroys its own ability to be repaired.
And we are seeing that exact same systemic collapse in the Democratic Republic of Congo, just with a completely different catalyst.
The Ebola outbreak.
Yeah, the outbreak in the Ituri province has claimed over 300 lives. The clinics are critically overwhelmed, and the World Health Organization is warning about a severe risk of regional spread.
A biological virus like Ebola exploits weaknesses in medical infrastructure just as mercilessly as seismic waves exploit weaknesses in concrete.
Wow, yeah.
Whether it's a 30-year housing policy, earthquake-resilient construction, or rural clinics, we are fundamentally talking about the architectures that hold human society together. And right now, globally, they are being stressed to the absolute breaking point.
We're watching physical infrastructure buckle in real time, but meanwhile, we are pouring $500 billion into a completely invisible digital infrastructure.
The tech sector.
Yeah, the tech companies in Silicon Valley are building an entirely new reality with an amount of money that is almost hard to process.
The scale of capital deployment we are seeing in artificial intelligence right now defies most historical comparisons, honestly.
I mean, the Crunchbase data in our sources states that global startup funding hit a record $510 billion in just the first half of 2026.
It's unbelievable.
Over $500 billion in 6 months, and AI is completely dominating that, largely absorbed by OpenAI and Anthropic as they prep for IPOs later this year.
To contextualize that for you, $500 billion is roughly the gross domestic product of a mid-sized developed nation.
Wait, really? Like an entire country?
Yeah, like Austria or Argentina. But instead of running an entire country for a year, that wealth is being injected purely into speculative AI technology over just a couple of quarters.
That is insane.
It is a modern gold rush, but the stakes are fundamentally different.
Well, and just like the gold rush, the corporate maneuvering behind the scenes is totally wild. The information reported that OpenAI has floated a proposal to give the U.S. government a 5% equity stake in the company.
Yes, ahead of their September IPO.
Right, to ease regulatory pressure from Washington. Have we ever seen a tech company try to literally hand ownership to the federal government just to buy goodwill?
You really have to look back to historical monopolies to see that kind of entanglement. Think about early defense contractors, or the East India Company, or the massive railroad expansions.
Okay, so it's not totally unprecedented, just very rare.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, OpenAI is essentially arguing that their foundational models are so deeply vital to national security and economic interests that the government should sit on the cap table.
It's like if you can't beat them, force them to join you.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a brilliant, albeit controversial, strategy. If you make yourself an extension of the state's capability, the state is far less likely to regulate you out of existence.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting to me. While OpenAI is trying to literally integrate with the federal government, other companies are just trying to survive their own internal AI costs.
The Tesla story.
Yeah. Tesla had to mandate a cap on AI spending starting this Monday, July 6th. They're limiting employees to $200 a week because software engineers were burning thousands of dollars in weekly tokens.
It adds up so fast.
It's like these engineers were treating AI tokens like an unlimited corporate credit card at a Vegas buffet.
It really is. And it's easy to forget that artificial intelligence is intensely physical. When an engineer queries a massive language model, when they spend those quote-unquote tokens, they aren't just sending data into the ether.
Right, it has to be processed somewhere.
Exactly. They're activating thousands of highly specialized graphics processing units, or GPUs, in a massive server farm.
So there's a huge physical cost?
Huge. Those GPUs require staggering amounts of electricity to run the matrix multiplications, and even more electricity to cool the servers down. Compute power is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Tesla is just realizing that unconstrained employee access to AI can hemorrhage cash in a matter of days.
Which explains perfectly why Amazon and Apple are making these massive hardware pivot.
Vertical integration.
Right. Amazon is developing its own custom AI chips for the Echo and Fire TV so they don't have to rely on or pay a premium to chip makers like NVIDIA or Qualcomm.
That is classic vertical integration. If AI is going to be the brain of every consumer device, Amazon doesn't want to rent that brain from a middleman. They want to own the silicon, the software, and the hardware.
Now, Apple is playing a slightly different game. Our sources say they have a 5-model iPhone roadmap planned through 2027, and they're exploring using custom Chinese-made chips in select configurations to dodge U.S. tariff exposure.
Yes.
But wait, I'm struggling to understand how Apple changing the origin of their chips actually shields them from a trade war. Can you break that down?
It comes down to supply chain segmentation.
Okay.
If the U.S. imposes heavy tariffs on Chinese-made technology components, Apple takes a massive financial hit if they import those parts into the U.S. to build or sell a phone.
Sure, that makes sense.
But if Apple uses Chinese-made chips exclusively for iPhones that are assembled and sold in the Chinese or European markets, those specific components never touch U.S. soil.
Oh.
Exactly. They completely bypass the U.S. tariff jurisdiction. They are engineering their hardware specifically to navigate international trade policy.
That is incredibly savvy hedging.
It really is.
The markets are definitely going to react to all of this. The NYSE and NASDAQ are closed today for the holiday, but our sources note everyone is waiting for Monday when the new ISM Services PMI data drops.
Yes, the PMI.
I'll admit, that acronym always trips me up. Why does Wall Street care so much about this specific data point?
So PMI stands for Purchasing Managers Index. Instead of looking at broad, lagging economic data, PMI surveys the actual executives who buy supplies and manage inventory for service sector businesses.
The people spending the actual money.
Right. It asks them, are you buying more or less than last month? Because the services sector makes up the vast majority of the U.S. economy, tracking what those managers are doing in real time serves as a highly accurate canary in the coal mine.
I see.
If the PMI drops, it means businesses are quietly preparing for a contraction before it even hits the broader economy.
So it's basically the raw data of human economic behavior.
Exactly.
And speaking of human behavior, we've talked about the billions of dollars tech companies spend trying to capture our attention. But this weekend, the most massive concentration of global human attention isn't on an app. It's on a literal field for a historic World Cup.
This raises an important question about how we consume media today. In a highly fragmented media landscape where everyone is isolated in their own algorithmic feed, live international sports represent one of the last true monocultures.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It forces synchronized human attention on a global scale.
The scale is staggering. I mean, today, the round of 16 kicks off. We've got Canada making their knockout debut against Morocco at 1 p.m. Eastern in Houston.
Huge day for Canada.
Yeah, and then France plays Paraguay at 5 p.m. in Philly. But the defining story right now is Lionel Messi.
Always messy.
Right. Argentina had a thrilling 3-2 extra time win over Cape Verde yesterday. Messi scored his 20th World Cup goal, taking the Golden Boot lead and extending a scoring streak to 8 consecutive games.
It's incredible.
The man is 39 years old. How is he still breaking modern defensive systems?
It is a triumph of processing speed over physical speed. Modern soccer defenses are incredibly sophisticated. They use data analytics to close down passing lanes and isolate star players.
Yeah, they're faster than ever.
But Messi plays the game with a completely unique spatial awareness. While the defense is expending energy reacting to the ball, he is constantly scanning the pitch, mapping the geometry of the players.
He's like playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
Exactly. He anticipates where the structural weaknesses in the defense will be 10 seconds before they happen.
Yeah.
He breaks the system by outthinking it.
Well, and as we look ahead, Argentina plays Egypt next on July 7th in Atlanta.
That'll be a massive match.
Yeah, Egypt advanced after beating Australia 4-2 on penalty kicks after a 1-1 draw. But after that match, Egypt's head coach waved a Palestinian flag on the pitch.
Right, which drew an immediate international reaction.
And it prompted a FIFA review. And I just want to pause here and say, for you listening, we're strictly reporting this incident and the FIFA review neutrally, exactly as it is in our sources. We're not taking any stance on the geopolitical conflict itself.
Absolutely, just observing the events.
But looking at this strictly through the lens of how the pitch is used as a global stage, I just think it shatters the idea that sports are a pure escape from reality.
Well, the pitch is never a neutral vacuum. International sports were essentially codified in the 20th century as a bloodless substitute for warfare. You have nations marching under their flags, singing their anthems, and engaging in zero-sum competition. When you put that much national identity in one place and broadcast it to the entire world, it becomes the ultimate venue for geopolitical signaling.
The broadcast numbers really prove your point about the monoculture. The U.S. men's national team plays Belgium on Monday night at 8 p.m. in Seattle.
And Fuller and Bulligan's red card appeal was upheld, right?
Yes, so he is cleared to play. But looking at their last match, their 2-0 win over Bosnia drew a record 24 million concurrent television viewers just for Fox in the U.S. And Sunday has Brazil versus Norway in New Jersey and Mexico versus England in Mexico City, so the numbers will keep climbing.
Getting 24 million people to do the exact same thing at the exact same time in 2026 is an astonishing cultural footprint.
It really is.
It proves that despite our technological fragmentation, there is still this deep, primal desire for shared collective experience.
So as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to bring it all back to you, the listener. We started out by talking about the era of unprecedented scale, and just look at the numbers we've unpacked today.
They're massive.
We are looking at 851,000 fireworks engineered to explode in perfect harmony over the Capitol. We've got $510 billion injected into the AI boom in just 6 months. We're tracking a housing bill strategically stalled on a desk, satellite imagery showing 58,000 buildings failing under seismic pressure, and 24 million fans unified by a single soccer game.
We have spent this entire deep dive looking at how rapidly human systems are scaling up. But that leaves us with a critical underlying question to carry forward.
What's that?
We're pouring $500 billion into artificial intelligence systems capable of processing endless streams of data. We are building digital architectures of unimaginable complexity. Yet we remain fundamentally vulnerable to a heat wave, a flooded river in Kentucky, or a viral outbreak in the DRC. So as our technological scale rapidly expands, we have to ask ourselves, is our biological and environmental resilience actually keeping pace? Or are we just building massive digital towers on an increasingly fragile physical foundation?
Wow, that is a heavy but incredibly necessary question to sit with. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep questioning the scale of the world around you, keep looking for the mechanisms driving the headlines, and we will catch you next time as we keep unpacking the future.